What if I told you that the CIA drugged American citizens with LSD for 20 years without their knowledge? Or that a psychologist deliberately created speech disorders in innocent orphan children just to prove a theory? These aren't horror movie plots. These are real psychological experiments that destroyed lives. And today, they would be completely illegal. Welcome back to Black Light Files, where we uncover the darkest secrets they don't want you to know. I'm your host, and today we're diving into the 5 most disturbing psychological experiments in history that would land scientists in prison if attempted today. Let's begin. Number 5. The Monster Study of 1939. This experiment earned its terrifying name for a very good reason. At the University of Iowa, psychologist Wendell Johnson had a theory about stuttering. He believed that constantly criticizing a child's speech could create artificial stuttering disorders. To test this, he decided to use human children as lab rats. Johnson selected 22 orphan children between ages 5 and 15. These children had no speech problems whatsoever, but Johnson told half of them they were beginning to stutter and were defective speakers. For months, these children were constantly criticized. Every time they spoke, researchers would interrupt them, telling them their speech was horrible and abnormal. The children lived in constant fear of opening their mouths. The results were devastating. Children who had perfect speech developed severe anxiety, selective mutism, and lifelong psychological trauma. One child became so terrified of speaking that she barely talked for the rest of her childhood. But here's the most disgusting part. Johnson knew he was destroying these children's lives. He had proof his theory worked, but he never attempted to reverse the damage. He just moved on. The experiment remained hidden for decades because Johnson feared comparisons to Nazi human experimentation. When it finally came to light in 2001, the University of Iowa paid nearly $1 million in damages to the surviving victims. But if you think that's disturbing, you haven't heard anything yet. Number 4. Little Albert, the baby who was tortured in the name of science. In 1920, behaviorist John Watson wanted to prove that fears could be artificially created in humans. His test subject? A 9-month-old baby named Albert. Albert was a happy, healthy baby who showed no fear of animals. Watson placed Albert in a room with a white rat. At first, Albert was curious and tried to play with it. But then Watson began his conditioning. Every single time Albert reached for the rat, Watson would strike a steel bar with a hammer directly behind the baby's head. The sudden, terrifying noise would make Albert scream and cry in terror. After just 7 trials, Albert became terrified of the white rat. But Watson wasn't finished. The fear generalized to other furry objects. Albert became terrified of rabbits, dogs, fur coats, cotton balls, and even Santa Claus masks. Watson had successfully created artificial phobias in an infant. But here's what makes this truly evil. Watson never reversed the conditioning. When Albert was removed from the study, he was left with severe, permanent psychological trauma. Watson later wrote, "Give me a dozen healthy infants, and I can guarantee that I can train any one of them to become any type of specialist I might select: doctor, lawyer, artist, or even beggar and thief." Albert's real identity remained unknown for decades. Some researchers believe he died young, possibly carrying these artificial fears to his grave. Watson had created a monster and walked away. Number 3. The experiment that proved you could become a Nazi. In 1961, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram was haunted by one question. How did ordinary German citizens participate in the Holocaust? Could regular people be convinced to torture innocent victims if ordered by an authority figure? Milgram designed a devilish experiment. Participants believed they were testing the effects of punishment on learning. They were told to administer electric shocks to a learner in another room every time he answered incorrectly. The shock started at 15 volts but increased to a deadly 450 volts. The learner, actually an actor, would scream, beg for mercy, complain of heart problems, and eventually fall silent. But here's the terrifying truth. 65% of participants administered the full 450-volt shock, even when they believed they had killed the person. Many participants suffered emotional breakdowns during the experiment. They sweated, trembled, and begged to stop. But when the experimenter said, "The experiment requires that you continue," most people obeyed. One participant continued shocking even after the victim had stopped responding completely. When asked why, he simply said, "The experimenter told me to continue." Milgram had proven that ordinary people could become torturers, with nothing more than a lab coat and a clipboard commanding them. But we're just getting started. The next experiment lasted only 6 days, but changed psychology forever. Number 2. The Stanford Prison Experiment, 6 days that revealed the monster inside all of us. In 1971, Philip Zimbardo converted Stanford University's basement into a mock prison. 24 healthy college students were randomly assigned as either prisoners or guards. The experiment was planned to last 2 weeks. It was terminated after just 6 days. Within 24 hours, the guards began implementing psychological torture. They forced prisoners to strip naked, clean toilets with their bare hands, and perform sexual acts. They denied food, water, and bathroom privileges. The prisoners? They began showing signs of severe depression, anxiety attacks, and psychosomatic rashes. 2 had complete emotional breakdowns and had to be released. But here's the most disturbing part. Zimbardo himself lost objectivity. He became the superintendent and actively encouraged the abuse. When his girlfriend visited and was horrified by what she saw, she had to convince him to stop the experiment. One prisoner went on hunger strike. Instead of supporting him, the other prisoners abandoned him to keep their blankets and privileges. The guards put him in solitary confinement. Guard accounts reveal they enjoyed the power. They invented new punishments, competed to see who could be more creative with psychological torture, and looked forward to their shifts. Zimbardo had proven that good people could become evil in less than a week. But nothing prepared the world for our number 1 experiment. This one lasted 20 years, and the perpetrator was the United States government. Number 1, MK Ultra, 20 years of government-sanctioned torture on American citizens. From 1953 to 1973, the Central Intelligence Agency conducted the most extensive human experimentation program in history. Their goal? Develop techniques for mind control that could be used in interrogations. The budget? $25 million, equivalent to $200 million today. The victims? Thousands of unsuspecting American and Canadian citizens. Here's what they did. CIA operatives drugged patients in hospitals, universities, and even brothels with LSD and other hallucinogens, without their knowledge or consent. One psychiatric patient received LSD every day for 77 consecutive days. 77 days of continuous psychedelic torture. In Montreal, Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron kept patients in drug-induced comas for months while playing repetitive audio messages. Patients would wake up having forgotten how to speak, unable to recognize their own families, with their entire personalities erased. The CIA established Operation Midnight Climax. They ran brothels where they secretly filmed clients while dosing them with LSD. They wanted to study sexual blackmail techniques, but it gets worse. They tested extreme electroshock therapy, 30 to 40 times the normal intensity. They experimented with sensory deprivation, paralytic drugs, and isolation chambers. Many victims never recovered their original personalities. They became different people entirely. Families were destroyed. Lives were erased. When congressional investigations began in 1975, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra documents destroyed. Most evidence was shredded, but some survived. The few victims who discovered what happened to them sued the government. Most cases were settled out of court with gag orders. For 20 years, your own government treated citizens like lab rats in the most horrific psychological experiments ever conducted. These experiments aren't just disturbing history lessons. They reveal something terrifying about human nature. Given the right circumstances, anyone can become a victim or a perpetrator. The Stanford guards weren't inherently evil. The Milgram participants weren't monsters. They were ordinary people who made extraordinary choices when placed in extraordinary situations. So here's the question that should keep you awake tonight. Which of these experiments would you have participated in? And more importantly, which side would you have been on? If these experiments disturbed you as much as they did me, let me know in the comments which one shocked you the most. And if you want more content that will make you question everything you thought you knew about human psychology, subscribe to Black Light Files and hit that notification bell. Because the darkest experiments in human history might not be in the past. Until next time, stay in the light.